They decorate living rooms, calm down patients, invite guests into restaurants, or end up in public aquariums. Now a multi-billion-dollar industry, marine aquariums are booming. Why just have pictures of a coral reef in your living room when you can have the real thing? The more colorful and exotic, the better. Almost all of these creatures are thousands of kilometers from their natural home. They have endured capture, poor handling, been packed in small plastic bags in styrofoam boxes, and shipped for long hours to shops or malls, or straight to our homes, just to amuse us. The animal's suffering doesn't seem to matter to the industry, and most of the people who buy the fish or who visit public aquariums seem unaware of it. One example is the endangered Banggai cardinal fish. 90% of its population has been lost due to its exploitation for the aquarium trade. What lies behind the colorful and exotic display of a marine aquarium? Monica Biondo, marine biologist of Fondation Franz Weber, wanted to know more about the trade in coral reef fish for the aquarium industry. Fondation Franz Weber traveled to Indonesia and filmed some deeply disturbing images. Capturing fish for the aquarium industry is not only cruel, it is destroying the marine environment.
The public is unaware of the impact of keeping a marine aquarium at home or visiting a public aquarium. Most people don't know where the fish come from and assume that they are bred in captivity, but they are almost all wild caught, and a lot of them die before they reach the buyers.
There are hardly any regulations or controls. Indonesia is one of the main suppliers of marine ornamental fish. Here, in the city of Luwuk, Sulawesi, in the eastern waters of Indonesia, we meet Dr. Alejandro Vageli. He is one of the world's leading scientists on the Banggai cardinal fish. He has studied this little fish for many years. It has come to symbolize the boom and bust of the aquarium industry. Vageli picks up Huniko Seba, or Oppo as he is known to his friends. Oppo has worked with him on every trip. He's not only his assistant and translator, but above all, the two have become good friends. After 7 years, Vageli has come back to the waters he knows so well. It is here where he saw his first Banggai cardinal fish in the wild in 2001. The waters look pristine, but beneath their surface, they hide a disturbing situation. They prepare for one of many dives over the next few weeks. There are some Banggai cardinal fish left. Not all have been fished out. But the reef looks bad. No sea urchins and no anemones. Another day, another area. To the east of Banggai Island, which gave its name to the fish, lies Masoni. Vageli's documentation shows that 8 years ago there were 2 populations, already greatly reduced by collection. This year, one of the populations is gone. In the entire island, only about 50 fish remain. In limbo, the coral reef is overgrown with algae, and not one Banggai cardinal fish can be found. The first 2 Banggai cardinal fish were collected by the Swedish zoologist Walter Kauderni in 1920. They languished for 13 years in a jar in the Leiden Museum of Natural History until they were given the name by the Dutch fish specialist Frederik Komans. This pretty fish was then forgotten until the aquarium industry noticed it in the mid-1990s. Today, 90% of the population has disappeared. Measuring just 5 centimeters, this highly fragile fish is only found in Indonesia, where it lives in small groups in shallow waters surrounding some 30 or so islands. Banggai Island is located within the Coral Triangle in the West Pacific Ocean. This region hosts the highest marine biodiversity in the world. Up to 3,000 coral fish species are found here, twice as many as anywhere else. The entire Banggai cardinal fish population occupies a total of just 23 square kilometers of coral reef. This fish has the lowest reproductive rate of all known cardinal fishes. It does not lay thousands of eggs in open water like other fishes. Instead, it produces only about 50 eggs, and after fertilization, the male incubates them in its mouth for about 30 days. The fish has a very limited distribution, as it lives a very sedentary life in sea urchins and anemones, and cannot cross currents, deep passages, or even small breaks in the reef. Banggai cardinal fish can be easily caught with hand nets. With little effort and no specialized equipment, a fisherman can capture hundreds of them in a matter of minutes, earning about 8 cents per fish. The end consumer, however, may pay more than $25 for a single fish, 300 times as much as the fisherman received. About 50% of the fish die in the process of capture, handling, and transport. Sometimes almost all die. Although the Banggai cardinal fish is among the very few coral reef fish that can be bred and raised in captivity, wild specimens are cheaper than captive bred ones, and so buyers prefer them. Dead fish are sorted from the live and thrown away, along with those that are sick or have broken fins. Then they are kept for days or weeks in holding pens, waiting for a buyer. The Banggai cardinal fish is one of over 2,000 coral reef species caught for the aquarium industry. Other than the seahorses and the humphead wrasse, no coral reef fish is protected under international law. In fact, there are almost no regulations, controls, or data monitoring of this trade. Matthias Lorscher of the Swiss Federal Food Safety and Veterinary Office commissioned Monica Biondo to research the importation of marine ornamental fishes into Switzerland.
We do have controls on import of all live animals basically, but for coral fish we do not have them on species level, so we don't exactly know what is being imported on that level.
In Hong Kong, we meet Jan Boczensky, a pilot. He has been a passionate snorkeler and diver since he was a boy. The coral reef is his second home. He has lived his whole life in Vanuatu in the South Pacific and has witnessed firsthand the degradation of coral reefs caused by the collection of fish for the aquarium industry. He has also witnessed heavy losses during transportation and handling of the fish cargo.
Well, it seems to be organised in polystyrene boxes, and each fish is usually put singly, or maybe two of them, in a little plastic bag with salt water, no more than 300 millilitres, and is then transshipped from the Pacific Islands, generally to places like transshipped to Australia, and then onwards to Los Angeles or onwards to Europe. So the fish actually live in a little plastic bag, I guess in total darkness, for approximately 18 to 24 hours. I can safely say that almost every flight you do coming out of the Pacific, part of the cargo will be live tropical fish. From what I can gather, it seems to be the most colourful species are the ones most sought after. The Moorish idols, the damsels, the wrasses, anything that's extremely colourful, the yellows, the dark blues. These are the ones that seem to be in most demand, and especially juveniles. For ease of transport, they're taking many small fish.
Back in the Banggai Islands, Rugeli and Oppo are conducting a new census to compare the situation with previous surveys. They survey multiple sites to calculate the size of the populations and to investigate the state of the habitat, as well as the sea urchins and anemones, which are critical hosts for the fish. They want to find out where the Banggai still exists, and if more populations have become extinct since the last survey. Rugeli has published many scientific papers and even a book on this particular fish. He teaches fish biology, and marine conservation at Rutgers University in the US. And he leads the scientific division of the New Jersey Academy for Aquatic Science. The Banggai cardinal fish is one of the very few coral reef fish species whose reproductive biology and ecology have been thoroughly researched, and for which the detrimental impact of overexploitation for the aquarium trade is clear and well documented. In contrast, very little is known about almost all other coral reef fishes. As a result, the impact on them from collection for the aquarium industry is largely unknown and unpredictable. The last assessment of the worldwide collection of coral reef fish was completed in 2003 by the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP. It estimated that 24 million coral reef fish were traded yearly, and that up to 80% may die during capture, handling and transport. Given the many new public aquariums being built around the world, and the rise in marine aquariums as a hobby, the scale of the problem today is surely much higher. Coral reef ecosystems are of great importance to local communities, indeed to the whole world. They are amongst the richest ecosystems on the planet, hosting a myriad of species. Also, many believe that reefs are vitally important for protecting against the impacts of climate change. Known as the rainforests of the sea, they are of global significance. In public aquariums, visitors are unaware of the drama going on behind the scenes. Almost no marine ornamental fish is bred in captivity. Nearly all are wild caught, and most die before even reaching an aquarium.
Due to current capture, shipping, and trade practices, it is estimated that over 80% of all wild-caught marine fish die before they're even sold. And those that are sold usually see mortality rates as high as 90% within the first year of being kept in captivity.
In other words, 4 out of 5 fish die before they ever reach an aquarium. Philippine marine biologist Greg Yan's study into coral reef fish mortality found that over 90% die during the first year in an aquarium.
Always remember that up to 9 out of 10 of all marine fish literally end up down the drain.
Marcus Wilde, philosophy professor at the University of Basel and a member of the Federal Ethics Commission, has written a book for the Swiss National Science Foundation on cognition, awareness and pain in fish, and was disturbed by the scenes of fish trading practices in this film.
I think that most people still don't realize that fish are sentient beings. So that, to me, is a clear case of cruelty. I think it's better not to have these fish in an aquarium. It's better to leave them in the natural habitat, which is endangered anyway.
From over 2,000 species in trade, only about 25 can be bred commercially, and most of these come from coral reefs. Captive breeding cannot meet the increasing demand for ornamental fish. Apart from the Banggai cardinal fish, almost 450 other coral fish species were imported into Switzerland in 2009. The main importer of marine ornamental fish, the US, imports over 2,000 different species. The rarer the species, the more expensive and sought after it is. A new American study shows that at least 50% of marine ornamental fishes imported into the US are caught with cyanide, a poison. Although fishing with cyanide has long been illegal, it is still commonly used to chemically stun the fish, although many die during the process or later in transport. And thousands of other species die along with them, including fishes, corals, and other invertebrates. Some fishermen even become poisoned themselves. Another threat is dynamite fishing for food. It too is illegal, but commonly used. Perhaps needless to say, dynamite fishing destroys the habitat of the Banggai cardinal fish and countless other species. This young man seems to see nothing wrong by using dynamite to catch fish for his family. The result, however, is dead fish almost everywhere, including corals and a myriad of other organisms blasted away, scarring the reef with countless craters from previous explosions. In this remote and highly biodiverse area of the world, this deadly practice is having a devastating impact, degrading vitally important reefs. Fewer and fewer can be found in healthy condition. Oppo tries to explain to the young fisherman that he is not only destroying the habitat of so many species, but he is also destroying his own livelihood. Indeed, the fisherman confirms that he has to go out further and further to find fish, but does not seem too worried. Only about 50 fishermen collect Banggai cardinal fish. They do not depend on this trade. It merely complements their income from fishing for food. There are also holding pens in the lagoon. The fishermen claim there are no Banggai cardinal fish in these pens, but Vegeli discovers thousands along with 4 endangered marine turtles. Although it is strictly prohibited, they will end up being eaten. By 2007, fishermen confirmed that it was becoming harder and harder to collect Banggai cardinal fish, as it was becoming scarce.
He said from 96, they can collect only for one day about 2,000 until 2003. Past 2003, they get less, so they have to go out to other islands to collect because the fish around here is get less.
So now it takes 1 week
to collect for 2,000.
2,000 fishes.
Right.
When before 2003, they only needed one day.
Right.
All right.
I said it's about 35,000.
35,000 every month, all year long. 35,000.
Yes, average.
To one buyer.
No, for all buyers.
All buyers.
Yeah.
And this is what, for the whole Banggai island or just for this region?
Just for this village.
The region.
This village.
This village.
Yeah.
Holy cow! How many fish are here?
Ini berapa banyak di sini, Pak? 2,000. 2,000 fish.
How long it takes to get all these fishes?
Ini berapa lama dah kumpul ini?
Satu minggu.
Yeah, almost 1 week.
1 week?
Yeah, 1 week.
And now it's getting harder to get the fish, or always was the same?
Sekarang bagaimana? Masih tetap nggak terlalu susah juga tangkap atau setiap?
By hand, they are taken from the water and put into a box, then to another bigger box on the boat. Each box already contains hundreds or thousands of other Banggai cardinal fish. Vegeli was told that the local governor has imposed a rule that no more than 5,000 Banggai cardinal fish should be captured from the entire region in any 1 month. Evidently no one adheres to this or tries to control it. What's more, who set the quota and on what grounds, how many fishermen are involved, no one knows. One day, on their 5-week survey, Vegeli and his team come across a seemingly protected area. Although Indonesia claims that efforts are made to protect the Banggai cardinal fish, not much of this protection is to be seen. A single wooden sign signals a conservation area. In reality, far and wide there are no controls. The only possible way to protect this fish is through international trade controls or bans. A couple of signs are not good enough.
One very important issue that most people don't realize about the collection of coral reef fishes, and particularly the Banggai cardinal fish, never take into account the huge mortality of the whole process that starts with the collection and continues in the holding nets in the local areas and during the shipment process. That whole process occurs to equatorial levels, very high temperature, where it's very hot, little oxygen content. The fish are being put in small containers, high densities, are being handled and roughly. Then are being bagged with very high density, 35, even 40 fishes per bag. It's about 3 liters or even less of water. We have to keep in mind that that is just the beginning of the longest journey, arriving to even mainland Sulawesi, and then the transport to the export of the center, in Manado, for example. And that transport is by land in a very rough road, and the fish is again being bagged after being bagged from the islands to Tumbak, then releasing a tank or releasing a net, being captured again, being bagged again. The export in Manado will debag the fish, put again the fish in the tanks, and eventually when they are ready to ship the fish to the airport, they need to bag the fish again, and that will be the final bagging and preparation for the fly. So from there, it's going to be another trip to the airport, waiting in the airport before getting to the cargo area, and then start the international flight. They can go to Singapore, and from Singapore to the States, or to Europe, or to Japan.
Back at the Filipino market, the fish are transferred to smaller plastic bags. They will receive no food during the whole time they are transported, so as not to foul the water. Fish with sharp spines are contained in 2 plastic bags to prevent puncturing the sacks. Some are placed alone, others in groups. Most have been in transport for over 2 days. It will take another 2 days before they arrive at the end consumer in the US, Europe, or Japan. These are standard procedures. As tropical fish live in a warm environment, they have a high metabolism, which requires them to eat regularly. Not feeding them weakens the fish and makes them prone to infections. Because of this, antibiotics may be added to the water, which may lead to drug-resistant germs that impact on both animals and people. Many fish do not survive the transport. Biondo has extensively researched the trade in coral reef fish for the Swiss Federal Food Safety and Veterinary Office.
There is no specific monitoring system in place to oversee this trade. The data collected is to prevent the spreading of diseases from live animals. I examined the species lists that should accompany the import papers, but a lot of imports don't have species lists. Most coral reef fishes for the marine aquarium trade come from the Coral Triangle, mainly Indonesia and the Philippines. This reflects the findings of a study from 2003 by the United Nations Environment Programme UNEP. There is a huge lack of new data on trade, but not only on trade, a lot of biological information on almost all coral reef fishes is also missing.
Yet the biggest problem remains a lack of information. Millions of private and thousands of public aquariums boost the trade in ornamental fishes. The industry is worth $15 billion each year. To remain attractive, public aquariums are becoming innovative, even hosting weddings to gain attention. After conducting research in 52 areas around 25 islands, Vanggai is back in Manado. He meets up with Biondo and Yani Mil. She has been working to protect the Indonesian environment for years. They want to speak with the officers who are responsible for the quarantine station. They are in charge of the health inspection of fish exported for food and supposedly keep records of the export volumes of all fish. 2 officials show them around. Vanggai wants to know how many fish are traded. It becomes evident that the information provided is inconsistent and does not agree with the volume provided by the collectors and exporters. They are invited to meet the director for refreshments and to discuss the situation. On the way to the last exporters in Manado, the 2 officials tell us why they are not traders anymore. There are not enough Banggais left. 7 years ago, there used to be dozens of traders and several exporters. The team arrive at the premises of the last exporter. It is obvious he knows his former colleagues well. The building is crumbling. He keeps over 100 aquariums with coral reef fishes. The exporter is keen on telling Vanggai that he has clients from all over the world, including from the United States. Every 2 to 3 weeks, the officials visit him for a so-called check. Most fishes are kept in unnaturally small, dark aquariums waiting to be shipped, which greatly increases their stress levels. This makes them even more susceptible to bacterial infections and diseases. Surprisingly, these Banggai cardinal fish are intentionally kept in a low salinity environment in the belief that it will help them survive the shipment process, but in reality, its effect is often fatal. Some fish are dying, and dead fish are scattered on the floor. The exporter explains that one delivery has reached the airport, and so we set off for the cargo area. There we find out that the consignment has already left, but for a change we see figures in black and white, so we can do the math. Currently, at least 500,000 Banggai cardinal fish are being collected every year, and there are an estimated 1.4 million Banggai left.
To be absolutely sure about the volume of the Banggai cardinal fish trade is a challenge. So you cross-check those numbers with the buyers, and then you cross-check the numbers of the buyers with the exporters, and then you look at the books of the quarantine offices or to the export facilities in the airport, and you have sort of a good idea of where the data start being unreliable or where the big parts are contradictory. So when you go to the islands and count that you have 100 fish in that particular bay, and you come back and you only find 2, well, and the only reason for those diminishing numbers are the capture for the aquarium trade, those numbers are very objective.
Even if the fish make it alive to their destination in domestic fish tanks or aquariums around the world, they will likely face many other problems. Stress-related aggression, injuries, poor husbandry and disease will progressively take their toll. Public aquariums also show species that are threatened with extinction, like this sawfish. Although already rare in the wild, the sand tiger shark is also often displayed because of its fierce appearance. But one fish looks like the other, and as there are no laws here, no one controls the losses. So dead animals are simply replaced, and yet another sad death goes unnoticed.
To safeguard coral reef fishes around the world from overexploitation through trade, some species need to be protected. Strict capture and trade measures should be put in place, and for some species like the Banggai cardinal fish, even a ban could be considered.
Switzerland has some strong laws on the protection of animals. There is, for example, a ban on imports of whales and dolphins.
We have commissioned a study to look at imports into Switzerland, to look at the documents we have. And we are now trying to convince the EU to also look at this trade and to adapt their traces database so that we have all the data on species level to look at total imports into the European region.
Coral reefs provide a wide range of valuable ecological benefits. They constitute a major food source and economic base for activities such as tourism, especially diving. Our oceans face major threats: overfishing, pollution, and climate change, naming only a few. Coral reefs cover less than 0.1% of the seas. Therefore, they are arguably even more precious than the rest of the ocean. According to the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, almost 1/3 of all coral reefs have been destroyed. Another 60% are seriously threatened and will probably be dead by 2020, unless we take action today. Foundation Franz Weber wants to raise awareness about the coral reef trade, which has grown almost exponentially.
Keeping coral fish in tanks has evolved from a specialized hobby to a multi-billion-dollar industry. Fondation Franz Weber does not only want to document the trade in marine ornamental fish, it aims to establish marine protected areas where coral fish and a myriad of other organisms have a safe haven. By helping fish stocks to recover, Fondation Franz Weber also helps local communities.
Many scientists are agreed. Controlling climate change and establishing marine protected areas are essential if reef life is to have a chance of recovery.
In September 2007, the IUCN Red List listed the Banggai cardinal fish as an endangered species. This means that these species have a very high risk of becoming extinct in the near future.
So, if such a well-studied species, which suffered a 90% decline from overexploitation and has never been a traditional source of livelihood for local people, cannot be protected, what can we expect for the thousands of other marine ornamental fish species for which much less information is available and which continue to be captured without any regulations?
The ornamental fish trade is an industry of spurious wants and not needs, where the life of a fish is measured by cents and not value, and where the costs to reef ecosystems are certain and incalculable. Without new controls and protections, coral reefs and their inhabitants, like our aspirations for a healthy planet to call home, will be lost beneath the waves.